Ladies and gentlemen, there is a powerful truth few ever grasp, a truth that, once understood and applied, has the capacity to transform the very course of your life. It is this: let them miss you and watch everything change. In a world obsessed with presence, with being seen, heard, and constantly available, the power of strategic absence is vastly underestimated. Yet absence, when coupled with value, creates magnetism. It awakens appreciation. It reveals your worth. In a world dominated by noise, presence, and constant availability, the idea that stepping back can increase one's value seems almost counterintuitive. Yet, this is precisely the secret known by those who understand human psychology and personal power. Strategic absence is not about neglect, nor is it about disappearing without purpose. It is about deliberately removing oneself in order to sharpen focus, create impact, and allow the world to recalibrate its understanding of who you are and what you offer. When you are always available, always saying yes, and constantly present in every room, every message thread, every opportunity, something subtle begins to happen. People stop noticing you, not because you have no value, but because your presence becomes expected. Familiarity, while comforting, has a strange way of breeding indifference. It dulls the senses. It makes people overlook what is directly in front of them. What they once admired, they now assume. What they once appreciated, they now expect. But when you step away, with intent, with confidence, and with clarity, you shift the dynamic. You create a vacuum. And in that vacuum, people begin to feel the weight of your absence. They remember what you brought to the table. They begin to realize that your contributions were not ordinary, that your energy, your mind, your insight, your presence carried a gravity they had taken for granted. Strategic absence works only when it is preceded by meaningful contribution. This is not a license to vanish without ever having made your mark. If you want your absence to be felt, your presence must first have meaning. You must have delivered value, demonstrated strength, and embodied purpose. Then, when you step back, you are not forgotten. You are remembered more vividly. People begin to question, where did they go? What are they working on? Why aren't they here anymore? And in asking those questions, they are acknowledging your impact. You have entered their thoughts without needing to speak. Your silence becomes your loudest message. Your absence forces recognition where your constant presence once allowed comfort. This principle extends beyond individual relationships. In business, in leadership, in creative endeavors, the moment you stop being omnipresent and start becoming intentional, your influence begins to rise. Scarcity creates demand. When people can no longer take your energy for granted, they start assigning it a higher value. What was once ignored becomes sought after. What was once overlooked becomes missed. You also give yourself space to grow. When you step back strategically, you create time to think, refine, and elevate. You are longer reacting to every request or demand. You begin to operate on your own terms. In this space, your ideas mature. Your vision sharpens. You gain clarity on who and what deserves your energy. You begin to realize that the most valuable thing you possess is not your time. It is your focused, intentional presence. Absence is not a retreat. It is a repositioning. It is a conscious decision to no longer dilute your influence by spreading yourself too thin. It is choosing to be remembered rather than simply seen. It is stepping away so that when you return with greater command, clearer intention, and deeper purpose. When used wisely, strategic absence is not weakness. It is strength. It is a form of communication. It says, I know my worth, and I do not need to prove it through constant visibility. It demands respect without asking for it. It creates a boundary without needing to announce one. It shifts the balance of power in your favor, not through force, but through the quiet, undeniable pull of your value. Presence in and of itself is not enough. Simply being in the room, showing up every day, or speaking often does not guarantee influence or respect. The truth is, your presence must be purposeful if it is to carry any weight. When your presence lacks intention, it becomes background noise. Noticed, perhaps, but not remembered. Purpose gives presence its power. Without purpose, presence is hollow and ultimately forgettable. To be truly effective, to make your presence magnetic rather than merely visible, you must begin with a clear understanding of who you are and what you stand for. Purpose anchors you. It defines your energy. It determines how you show up, where you invest your time, and who receives your focus. When you are driven by a definite purpose, every room you enter feels different. You do not chase attention. Your presence commands it. You do not try to impress. You express clarity, confidence, and direction simply by existing in alignment with your mission. Many people confuse movement with progress and activity with achievement. They rush from meeting to meeting, conversation to conversation, leaving traces of themselves everywhere but never truly making an impact anywhere. This is because their presence is not backed by purpose. They have not taken the time to define why they are doing what they're doing. They have no inner compass. As a result, their presence is reactive, scattered, and ultimately forgettable. Purposeful presence, on the other hand, is rare. It is deliberate. It moves with awareness. It speaks only when something must be said. It acts only when action will move the needle. It is not driven by fear of missing out or a need for constant validation. It is calm, focused, and powerful because it is rooted in something deeper than appearances. It is not about being seen. It is about being felt. And to be felt, you must know exactly what you intend to bring to the moment. This is not about shrinking or becoming invisible. It is about aligning your presence with your values, your vision, and your goals. It is about choosing wisely where you place your energy. It is about recognizing that time and attention are not infinite and that where you choose to be. Mentally, they want to hurt you. Emotionally and physically. Matters. Every time you show up somewhere without purpose, you are robbing yourself of the opportunity to show up somewhere that truly needs you. You are leaking power through unintentional engagement. When your presence has purpose, people notice. They might not even be able to explain why, but they feel it. They feel the difference between someone who is just there and someone who is present. They sense the intention behind your words. To hurt you, they respond to the clarity in your actions. You begin to shape the atmosphere rather than be shaped by it. You are no longer tossed by circumstances or pulled by opinions. You are centered. You are guided. You are in control of yourself and your influence. People respect what is clear. They follow what is certain. And certainty does not come from arrogance or dominance. It comes from purpose. When you are certain about why you are present, you move differently. You don't speak to impress. You speak to contribute. You don't attend to be included. You attend to add value. Your presence becomes a tool, a message, and a force, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it through inner clarity. This is where true influence begins, not in being constantly visible, but in being purposefully present. When every action reflects intention, every presence becomes impactful. When your presence has purpose, you do not need to explain yourself. Your energy speaks. Your focus leads, and the world begins to respond. There comes a time when growth demands distance. It is not a matter of pride, nor is it about resentment or ego. It is a matter of necessity. To evolve, to sharpen your path, And to protect your energy, you must withdraw from the environments, conversations, and relationships that no longer align with who you are becoming. Holding on to what has already served its purpose is the greatest barrier to progress. Our many remain stuck not because they lack potential, but because they continue to feed connections and commitments that have expired. Every stage of life comes with its own people, its own rhythms, its own lessons. But not everyone is meant to go with you to the next level. There are circles that once supported your survival, but they cannot support your success. There are voices you once listened to that now only echo your fears and doubts. There are spaces that once felt comfortable, but now feel constricting. Growth does not happen in comfort. It happens in clarity. And clarity begins when you step back and assess what is truly contributing to your progress and what is quietly consuming it. Withdrawing is not quitting. It is not giving up. It is an act of discipline. It is a conscious decision to protect your focus. You do not owe unlimited access to anyone. Your time, your mind, and your energy are resources that must be invested wisely. When you surround yourself with distraction, negativity, or stagnation, you absorb it. Slowly, subtly, it seeps into your thinking, dulls your vision, and derails your momentum. You start to question your worth. You begin to compromise your standards. You shrink to fit the expectations of people who never truly saw your full capacity. There is power in detaching from what no longer fuels your purpose. When you begin to withdraw from draining dynamics, you make space for clarity. You start to hear your own thoughts again. You reconnect with your original vision. You become more aware of what inspires you, what drives you, and what you actually want. Without the noise, you regain access to your inner voice, the one that was always guiding you, but became drowned out by the opinions and energies of others. The truth is, some people are not resisting your growth intentionally. They just don't understand it. They see you changing, evolving, making moves they wouldn't make, taking risks they wouldn't take. That makes them uncomfortable, so they resist. Not because they are bad, but because they are familiar with a version of you that no longer exists. Your responsibility is not to stay small to preserve their comfort. Your responsibility is to follow your growth, even if it takes you away from those who once stood beside you. This withdrawal may be silent. It may be gradual. It may not even be explained. You don't owe anyone a detailed report on why you're shifting. You don't need approval for your evolution. What matters is that you honor the truth that is calling you forward. It may ask you to step away from environments you've known for years. Not because they want to hurt you. It may to disconnect from people who helped you once but are now holding you back. It may ask you to stop engaging in patterns of behavior that once felt normal but now feel toxic to your progress. As you withdraw from what no longer serves your growth, you will feel discomfort. You will feel doubt. But beyond that discomfort lies power, lies clarity, lies freedom. You begin to operate from intention rather than obligation. You stop managing perceptions and start nurturing your potential. You begin to recognize that your growth is sacred and not everyone is meant to witness it or walk alongside it. Some chapters are meant to end quietly so that new ones can begin with purpose and strength. In a world that glorifies constant motion, few recognize the extraordinary power in solitude. The loudness of life, the endless opinions, comparisons, and distractions drowns out the very clarity so many people are desperate to find. Yet, the clarity they seek will never come from external voices. It comes in the still moments when all the noise fades and one is left alone with their own thoughts. This is where vision is refined. This is where direction becomes sharp. Solitude is not emptiness, it is space for alignment. The majority of people fear being alone because they confuse solitude with loneliness. But the two are not the same. Loneliness is a feeling of lack of absence. Solitude is a deliberate state, a chosen silence where thinking becomes deeper and intentions become clearer. In solitude, you are no longer performing. You are no longer reacting. You are simply being. And in that being, you start to uncover what truly matters to you. Not what you've been told should matter, not what others expect, but what genuinely resonates with your inner compass. When you're constantly surrounded by people and noise, your energy is always split. Part of it goes toward maintaining conversations, appearances, expectations. But when you withdraw into solitude, all of that energy returns to you. That energy fuels introspection. It allows you to ask better questions about your purpose, your goals, your habits, your values. It allows you to stop living from a place of reaction and start living from a place of intention. You begin to evaluate where you're headed and whether that direction is truly yours or just one you've adopted from others. This clarity does not arrive instantly. It reveals itself slowly. At first, the quiet can be uncomfortable. The mind, so used to distraction, may resist. But if you stay in the solitude long enough, the resistance fades. What once uncomfortable becomes peaceful. You begin to realize how rarely you've been fully present with yourself. And when you are, you start to notice things you hadn't seen before, desires that were buried, ideas that were ignored, truths that were silenced. All of them start to surface in solitude. In this space, you become your own guide. You no longer need to crowdsource your direction. You stop needing the approval of others to validate your path. You start trusting your own vision because you've taken the time to understand it, shape it, and refine it in silence. This is where real leadership begins, not in shouting the loudest, but in knowing with certainty where you're going and why. Solitude also strengthens resilience. When you are comfortable being alone, you become unshakable. You are no longer afraid of being misunderstood because you understand yourself. You're no longer afraid of being left behind because you are moving on your own terms. People who fear solitude often fear their own thoughts. But when you face them, when you explore them, you build an inner strength that no external validation can match. Those who constantly seek outside input dilute their focus. They try to please everyone, only to end up pleasing no one, least of all themselves. But those who spend time in solitude develop clarity so sharp that their presence becomes decisive. They no longer guess their way forward. They choose. They act. They execute. Because their vision has been tested, refined, and strengthened in silence. Solitude is not isolation, it is preparation. It is where vision becomes clear enough to withstand distraction. It is where goals be conquered deep enough to endure resistance. It is where you transform from a person who reacts to the world into a person who shapes it. The time you spend alone is not wasted. It is the foundation of everything you will later build in public. There is a profound strength in silence. In a time where the loudest voices often dominate the room, people forget the undeniable impact of a quiet presence. It is easy to fall into the habit of explaining yourself, proving your worth, and constantly trying to remind others of what you bring to the table. But the more you feel the need to explain, the more you signal a lack of internal certainty. True power does not announce itself. It is felt. And when your silence is anchored in clarity and self-assurance, it speaks volumes more than words ever could. Letting silence reveal your worth requires discipline. It requires a deep belief in your own value, a belief strong enough to withstand the discomfort of not being immediately seen or acknowledged. Most people panic in silence. They rush to fill it with noise, with reassurances, with justification. But those who are confident in who they are and what they offer do not need to chase attention. They understand that presence is more impactful when it is intentional, not constant. They know that real value does not beg to be noticed. It is recognized in time. Silence invites curiosity. When you are not always speaking, always posting, always proving, people start to wonder what you're thinking, what you're building, what you're becoming. Your silence creates space for mystery, and mystery creates magnetism. When everyone else is trying to be loud, your calm becomes your distinction. Your refusal to explain every move, every thought, every shift sends a clear messaging you do not owe your worth to anyone's approval. In professional spaces, in relationships, and in moments of transition, these that want to hurt you, this principle becomes especially powerful. When others question your decisions, when they doubt your direction, want to hurt you, when they wonder why you withdrawn or changed course, silence becomes a boundary. It separates those who genuinely understand your vision from those who only ever valued your availability. You don't have to defend growth. You don't have to argue for your evolution. You let your silence say, I'm focused. You let your progress do the talking. And in time, results silence every doubt more effectively than explanations ever could. There is also wisdom in understanding that not every environment deserves your voice. Not every conversation merits your participation. Not every audience is ready to receive your truth. When you speak too often in rooms that cannot hear you, you waste energy. You dilute your message. But when you wait, when you observe, when you listen more than you speak, you learn. And when the time comes to speak, your words carry the weight of that wisdom. They land with impact because they are rare, because they are earned. Letting silence reveal your worth also sharpens your self-respect. You no longer overextend to prove yourself. You no longer perform in exchange for validation. You walk away from spaces where your value is questioned, not in anger, but in quiet certainty. You understand that the right people, the right opportunities, the right alignments will recognize your value, not because you shouted it, but because it was undeniable in how you moved, how you created, and how you showed up with consistency, even without applause. Those who learn to let silence speak for them are not passive. They are deliberate. They are often the ones making the deepest moves, not in the spotlight, but in the background. While others seek attention, they build substance. While others broadcast every step, they lay the groundwork for a foundation so strong it cannot be shaken. And when the moment is right, they emerge not with noise, but with undeniable presence, a presence that came from quiet effort and unwavering belief. The world is filled with people explaining why they haven't started yet, why they failed, why they feel stuck. They speak of their intentions, their struggles, their plans. But rarely do these explanations lead to transformation. Words can be powerful, but when overused in place of action, they become a trap. To rise above this pattern, to command respect, to move with power, you must shift your focus from talking about outcomes to producing them. You must learn to return with results, not explanations. Results carry a different energy. They speak on your behalf. They eliminate doubt, erase skepticism, and silence unnecessary questions. When you return with results, you don't need to explain your absence, your silence, or your detachment. The outcome becomes the statement. It tells the story of the effort behind the scenes, the late nights, the strategic decisions, the discipline required to stay the course. It carries weight because it is undeniable. It is proof that something was being built when nothing was being said. Explanations often come from a place of fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being judged. Fear of being overlooked. But fear is not what produces transformation. It is action taken in spite of fear that moves things forward. When you prioritize results over reasons, you change your posture. You are no longer seeking permission. You are no longer waiting for others to understand. You become focused only on what must be done. The conversations you used to have shift from, "Let me explain," to, "Here it is." People respect outcomes because they want to hurt you. They don't need a detailed account of your process when they can see the effect. They don't ask why you were silent when you return with progress that speaks louder than any justification. Results reframe the way others perceive you. They reposition you from someone who talks about potential to someone who delivers on it. And once you establish yourself in that way, doors open that were previously closed. The world listens differently to those who prove through results rather than defend through reasons. This mindset is not about arrogance or coldness. It is about responsibility to hurt you. It is about deciding that your time and energy are too valuable to be spent convincing people of what you are capable of. It is about knowing that matters in the end. It is not how well you explain your intentions, but how well you execute them. Everyone has reasons. Fewer have results, and the ones who have both always let the results speak first. Returning with results so transforms your internal dialogue. You begin to see yourself differently. Each completed task, each step forward, each small victory builds a new level of confidence. You don't need to keep rehearsing the story of why things didn't work. You are hurt. You are now writing a new story, one based on action, focus, and evidence. You move from, "I hope this works," to "This is what I've done." You replace the weight of uncertainty with the grounding of achievement. In silence, you build. In solitude, you refine. And when you emerge, you do so with something real in hand, not promises, not potential, but results, tangible proof of progress. And this changes the way you walk into every room, no longer asking to be seen, no longer hoping to be understood. You enter with quiet assurance, knowing you carry something that cannot be ignored. Those who master this approach become rare. While others remain stuck in cycles of justification, they move forward. While others talk of dreams, they turn those dreams into plans and those plans into results. They don't seek applause. They seek completion. Not they want to hurt you. They live in a way where their work introduces them before they ever have to say a word.